You know, there's something rather curious about the whole business we call spiritual awakening. People come to me and they say, "Alan, what is it that these awakened people see? What do they know that I don't know?" And I have to laugh because the question itself reveals the very predicament we're in. You see, the spiritually awake person doesn't see something that isn't there. They don't have access to some special realm that's hidden from ordinary mortals. No. What they see is what's right in front of everyone's nose. Only they see it without the filtering, without the commentary, without the constant chattering interference of what we call the ego. Let me put it to you this way. Imagine you're looking at a tree. Now, most of us don't really look at the tree at all. We look at the word tree, we look at our concept of treeness, we think, oh yes, that's a tree, I know what trees are. Maple. Oak, useful for lumber, nice for shade, produces oxygen. And we've completely missed the tree. We've substituted the menu for the meal, the map for the territory. The awake person looks at that same tree and sees it directly without the verbal interference. They see the actual suchness of it, the isness of it, the extraordinary intricate dance of light and shadow and form that's happening right there. And suddenly that tree is the most marvelous thing in the universe. It's not that they're seeing something extra. They're seeing what's actually there when you remove what's extra. What's been added by the conceptual mind. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Most people are walking around in a kind of trance. They're hypnotized by words, by concepts, by their own thoughts. They think that their thoughts about reality are reality. It's as if someone spent their entire life looking at photographs of the ocean, and thought they knew what the ocean was. Then one day they go to the beach and they weigh in and the waves crash over them and they say, "Good God, this is nothing like the photographs." That's what awakening is like. It's the difference between the photograph and the actual experience. And the curious thing is everyone has had moments of this. Everyone has had those experiences where suddenly the world becomes vivid and alive and immediate. Perhaps you've had it in moments of great danger or great beauty or great love. Suddenly the thinking stops and there's just this extraordinary presence of reality. Children have this naturally. Watch a child discovering a puddle or a butterfly or their own hands. They are completely absorbed, completely present. They haven't yet learned to substitute concepts for experience. But then we educate them. We civilize them. We teach them to live in their heads, to live in the past and the future, to live anywhere except here and now. And gradually that direct seeing fades away, and they join the rest of us in this collective trance. The spiritually awake person has somehow broken this trance. Perhaps through meditation, perhaps through some crisis or shock, perhaps through philosophical inquiry. It doesn't really matter how. What matters is they've realized that the way they've been taught to experience reality is only one way and not necessarily the most accurate way. They've discovered that their thoughts about things are not the things themselves. And here's something that really baffles people. The awake person sees that there is no separate self in the way we usually think of it. Now, I'm not saying they don't exist or that you don't exist. What I'm saying is that this feeling we have of being a separate ego locked inside a bag of skin, totally separate from the rest of the universe, that feeling is a fiction. It's a very convincing fiction, mind you, but a fiction nonetheless. You see, we've been taught to identify ourselves with this little voice in our head, this internal narrator that's constantly commenting on everything. I like this, I don't like that, I'm worried about this, I'm hoping for that, and we think that little voice is us. But the awake person has realized that they're not that voice. The voice is something that happens within their awareness. But it isn't what they fundamentally are. Think about it this way, you can be aware of your thoughts, you can watch them come and go. So if you can observe your thoughts, you can't be your thoughts, can you? That which observes is not the observed. The awake person has discovered that they are the awareness in which everything arises. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, the whole world. They're not a thing inside the universe. They are the consciousness in which the universe appears. Now, this isn't some sort of grandiose delusion. It's not about thinking you're God in some egotistical sense. It's quite the opposite. It's the dissolution of the ego. The realization that what you really are is much more fundamental than this little character you've been playing. This role with your name and your history and your ambitions. The awake person sees through what I call the skin-encapsulated ego. They realize that the boundary between inside and outside, between self and other is conventional, not absolute. When you breathe in, the air becomes you, you become the air. When you eat an apple, the apple becomes you. Where do you end, the world begin? The line is arbitrary, we draw it for convenience. But nature knows no such line. And when you really see this, when you really get it in your bones, Not just as an intellectual idea, but as a direct perception. Everything changes. You realize that you're not a stranger in the universe. You're not some cosmic accident. Some little flash of consciousness that somehow got lost in a mechanical meaningless cosmos. No, you're an expression of the whole thing. Just as a wave is an expression of the ocean. This brings us to something else that spiritually awake people see, which is the unity of all thing. Not unity in some vague mystical sense, but the actual literal fact that everything's interconnected, that everything arises together. You can't have up without down. You can't have inside without outside. You can't have self without other. You can't have life without death. These things don't exist separately and then come into relationship. They're aspects of a single unified process. Most people see the world as a collection of separate things that occasionally interact. They see themselves as one thing and everything else as other things. But the awake person sees that this is like saying the crest of a wave is separate from the trough. They're different aspects of one movement, one wave. In the same way, all the apparently separate things in the universe are different aspects of one happening, one cosmic event. And this changes everything about how you live. When you see that you're not separate from the world, you can't help but treat it differently. Harming others becomes like cutting off your own hand. It's obviously against your interest because they're not really other in the way you thought. This isn't morality imposed from outside, it's simply intelligent self-interest once you understand what yourself actually is. Another thing the awake person sees is the extraordinary intelligence of nature, the intelligence of the universe itself. You see, we've been taught to think that consciousness is something unusual, something that only happens in human brains and maybe in animal brains. Everything else is supposed to be dead, mechanical, unconscious. But this is a very strange idea if you think about it. How did conscious beings emerge from an unconscious universe? How did intelligence arise from stupidity? It's like saying you can get blood from a stone or apples from a brick wall. The awake person realizes that consciousness must be fundamental to the universe. Not something that appeared as an afterthought. The universe must be intelligent in its very nature or intelligence could never have appeared within it. Look at your own body. You don't consciously beat your heart or digest your food or fight off infections or grow your hair. All of that happens spontaneously, intelligently, without any deliberate effort on your part. The same intelligence that grows grass from the soil and turns caterpillars into butterflies. That intelligence is what's beating your heart right now. You're not doing it. It's doing you. The awake person sees that they're not controlling in the way they thought. The ego doesn't actually do anything. Thoughts arise spontaneously. Actions happen. The sense of being a controller, a separate agent making decisions. That's just another thought arising in the stream of consciousness. In reality, you're being lived by the universe just as a wave is being waved by the ocean. Now, this might sound terrifying at first. People think if I'm not in control, then what? Am I just a puppet? Do I have no free will? But this is still thinking in terms of separation of me versus the universe. What the awake person realizes is that the controller and the controlled are one. The universe isn't forcing you to do anything. You are what the universe is doing at this particular point in space and time. When you see this, there's a tremendous relief, a tremendous letting go. All that anxiety about whether you're doing the right thing, making the right choices, living your life correctly, it falls away. You realize you can't make a mistake because you're not separate from the process. You can't do anything other than what you do because you're not separate from the power that's doing it. This doesn't make you passive or irresponsible. It makes you spontaneous, natural, free. The spiritually awake person also sees through the illusion of time in a very profound way. We think of time as this river flowing from past to future, and we think we're being carried along in it. But actually there is only now. The past is a present memory. The future is a present anticipation. Both exist only as thoughts occurring now. The awake person lives fully in the present moment because they see that's the only place life ever actually happens. Most people are never where they are. They're always living in memories of the past or fantasies about the future. They're thinking about what they should be doing, what they should have done, what might happen tomorrow. And meanwhile life is happening now and they're completely missing it. They're missing the miracle of this moment. This breath, this sight, this sound. The awake person has somehow managed to come back to the here and now. They've realized that this moment is all there is and it's completely sufficient. In fact, it's perfect exactly as it is. This doesn't mean they don't plan for the future or learn from the past. But they don't confuse those mental activities with reality. Reality is always now. And in this present moment when you really settle into it, something extraordinary happens. The mind becomes quiet. The constant stream of commentary stops or at least fades into the background. And there's just this awareness, this open spacious consciousness in which everything is appearing. And you realize that this awareness, this consciousness is what you really are. It's been here all along. But you've been so busy thinking about things that you never noticed it. This awareness is very simple, very ordinary, and yet it's the most profound thing in the universe. It's the light in which everything appears. Without it, there would be no world, no experience, no anything. And it's what you are, not as an object or a thing, but as pure subjectivity, pure presence, pure being. The spiritually awake person rests in this awareness. They identify not with a passing show of thoughts and feelings and sensations, but with the awareness in which all of that appears. And from this perspective, everything looks different. Problems don't disappear, but they lose their power to disturb. Pain is still felt, but there's no suffering to it by resistance and complaint. Joy is experienced more fully because there's no fear of losing it. Life becomes play, a cosmic dance, a game. Not in the sense of not taking it seriously, but in the sense of not taking yourself too seriously. You realize you're playing a role, a character, but you're not limited to that role. You can be in the world fully engaging completely and yet not be of it, not be trapped by it. This is what the spiritually awake person sees. They see reality directly without the filter of concepts. They see the unity of all things. They see that consciousness is fundamental. They see that there is no separate self. They see that all there is now. And they see that what they really are is the awareness in which all of this appears. And the beautiful, frustrating, wonderful thing is that I can tell you all of this, but it won't help you one bit unless you see it for yourself. These are just more words, more concepts, more items on the menu. The real feast is available right now in this very moment if you would only stop reading the menu and start eating. Look at what's actually here. Listen to what's actually sounding, feel what's actually present, and in that direct contact with reality, you may discover what the spiritually awake already know, that you are that reality looking at itself through these particular eyes.